Hi there, I'm Noelle, I'm a cosplayer, and this is my YouTube channel. As my followers may have noticed, I've been gone for a while. And there's a good reason behind that. I have been in Con Crunch for 5 months. And yeah, we're not doing that again. I tell myself as I probably will go do it again. But anyway, I've been in Con Crunch for 5 months because I decided to pick 2 very large projects to work on back to back. One was Molly Mock. His cloak, yeah. I expected that cloak to take me only about 2 days to paint. It took me 60 hours cumulative. I watched a lot of Star Trek, but that's besides the point. And then after I got done working on Molly Mock, I threw myself into working on Shiva from Final Fantasy X. And that wig alone took me about 3 weeks. So needless to say, I've been a little busy. And in that amount of time, I've come to realize a concept called creative fatigue. I am exhausted. And that's what we're going to talk about today. What is creative fatigue? Basically, creative fatigue is when you just kind of don't want to work on anything anymore. Even if you absolutely love it, even if this was your passion project and you've been super hyped and you've had so much fun working on it, at some point, you're likely going to hit a roadblock where you just can't. And that is what we call creative fatigue. Basically, how we explain it in the writing world is it's like a well. I don't really like that analogy, so I'm gonna go with a cauldron, because a cauldron's not bottomless. But anyway, basically, you have a creative cauldron, and that is what you pull from for all of your creative projects. So every time you come up with a new idea, you pull from the cauldron. Every time you come up with a new detail, you pull from the cauldron. Every time you run into a roadblock and need to work out a new possibility for your project, you pull from that cauldron. At some point, though, your cauldron is going to be empty, and you are not going to be able to pull from it anymore. That is what we call creative fatigue. And when you hit this point, you have to refill your cauldron. So there are a number of different ways people do this, and it's very individual for each person. Some people will go work on a different type of creative project. So for example, I'm a writer, but I'm also a cosplayer. So I took some time off of cosplay over the last few weeks, but I've been writing, and that's been really great for me because it taps into like a different part of my creative mind. So it allows me to use a different creative cauldron in a sense, but it's still kind of all the same creative cauldron. I don't really know how to explain it. Another way that people refill their creative cauldron is by going out into the world. They go for walks, they go talk to people, they'll watch a TV show, kind of to give their mind something new that will hopefully feed back into the creative cauldron. Now that you understand what a creative cauldron is, how you pull from it, and what to feed back into it, there's something that we often run into, and that is guilt. If your creative cauldron runs dry and you just can't continue working on something, a lot of people will feel guilty. Maybe they had a deadline coming up. Maybe this is something they've been trying to get finished forever. They just feel so overwhelmed and they can't do it anymore. There is absolutely nothing wrong and nothing abnormal about your creative cauldron running dry. It happens to everyone, honest to God. And it's really hard to feel like you have to take a break. But I promise you that you will feel a lot better once you've refilled your creative cauldron. And I can say from experience that continuing to push through a project, even though your creative cauldron has run dry, kind of makes you start to resent that project. For example, when I was working on Molly Mock's cloak, I came home from work every single day and worked on that cloak. I spent my entire weekend working on that cloak. I would sit for 12 hours a day and paint that cloak. And by the time I was getting close to being done, I kind of hated it. I wanted to throw it away. I wanted to just yeet my paint out the window because I was so done with that single project and how long it was taking me. And I had this very specific idea of how I wanted it to look in the end. And I was so afraid I was gonna screw it up. And I'm not saying I hate my cloak now. I am so proud of the work that I did, and I'm so happy I finished it. But I didn't enjoy the process as much as if I had something else to work on and I could take a break and go work on something else. or take time off and just watch TV. Having time to refill the creative cauldron is extremely important, not just for finishing a project, but for enjoying the process of the project. At the end of the day, most creatives are creatives because of the process. They love the building, they love the creation. Yes, the end product's amazing, and we love that too, but the end product is a very small part of the journey. So it's important to actually enjoy the journey. I feel like this has been a very abstract idea of what creative fatigue is like. So let me give an example of how creative fatigue has affected me. Now, as I said, I was in ConCrunch for 5 months. I worked on Molly Mock for a very long time, and then I went straight into working on Shiva for Katsucon. I finished both of them. I'm very proud of my work. I'm very happy with them. But by the time I got back from Katsucon, I didn't want to do anything. And as many of my friends know, I am an endless cosplanner. I have a list of cosplays I want to do. I have a hard time picking a single cosplay and just working on that because I just want to do everything. I want to make everything right now, and I want to have all these options. And for the first time since I started cosplaying, I didn't want to do anything. I had no interest in figuring out what my next cosplay was. I didn't want to buy anything. I didn't want to go make anything. I didn't even want to clean my apartment and look at my cosplay stuff. It was like I wanted to take a hard break from this thing that had brought me so much joy, because at some point along the line, I had lost that joy. And that's really, really sad for me. And it was really hard to acknowledge that, like, I needed time away from this thing that brought me joy, because I had not given myself time to enjoy it. Now, that's not to say I didn't enjoy the process. I loved learning new things for these cosplays that I built. I loved seeing the final projects, and it was a lot of fun to try out new skills and try out new methods for these cosplays to come to life. But it was an endless journey. It was like every night I had to come home and I had to work on something and I had to make progress. And even when I did make progress, it wasn't as fast as I needed it to be, and I was falling behind on my schedule, and I was really afraid I wasn't going to finish my cosplays by con. And I wore Molly Mock multiple times, and each time I had to add something new, because the first time I didn't get him finished. The second time I didn't get him finished. Even now, he's technically not finished. But I had to be happy with what I had and enjoy what I had, because at the end of the day, it's not about getting it perfect. It's about being happy with what you've done and seeing the journey that you've made and the things that you've learned and the fun that you've gotten from it. And that kind of got lost along the way. So actually right now I'm taking some time off, partly because of quarantine and that, but also because I need a break. I need to work on something else. I need to clear my mind of all the anxious energy that built up and the stress I put myself under being up until 2 a.m. every night on work days because I had to get something done. I had to feel like I was making progress just so I could wear the cosplay for a few hours at a con. I will say, in a sense, I thrive on that energy because I love chaos. I like being under pressure because it makes me focus better than being like, oh, it's 6 months away, I have plenty of time, I don't need to work on it today. But at the same time, being constantly in that state is very exhausting. And because I was in that state for 5 months straight, I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't. That's not to say I haven't been cosplaying. If you've been following my social media, you've obviously seen that I've still been doing a bunch of casual cosplays. I went and made some original characters, and I've had a lot of fun with that, but it's slightly different because I'm not building something. It's not something that I have to devote 3 days in. It's literally like, hey, I threw a wig on and put some makeup on, grab some clothes out of my closet, and I've made some videos and we're done. It's a very short interval that is not necessarily pulling a lot from my creative cauldron. So I'm still able to refill my cauldron while enjoying things that are in the realm of cosplay. I don't know how much creative fatigue is really talked about in the cosplay world specifically. I know it's big in the writing world and it's a huge topic over there, so it's something that I'm used to talking about, but I don't see a lot of it over here. And I think that it's important to be open about the discussion so that people understand it's normal and how to better cope with it so that they don't get as stressed out, because like I said, people empty out their cauldron and then they feel guilty and then they feel stressed. And it just kind of snowballs on top of itself until people can't function. And I think if we had a better understanding of creative fatigue and how to recognize it and kind of remedy it in a way, I think people would have more enjoyment in cosplay. And that's my whole point. I want everybody to have fun. I want to have fun, and I'm taking measures in order to continue to have fun in cosplay because I do love it and I do want to continue doing it even if I do need a couple weeks off. That's just life. Now, that's not to say I'm done completely. I am actually still working on something very slowly, but it's a very large project that I've been planning since last May. So it's not something I'm con crunching for. It's just something that like, hey, I feel like working on something right now. My hands are idle. I can work on that. And that's really helpful to still kind of feel like I'm moving towards something if I do feel slightly guilty about, hey, I haven't done anything in a while and it's stressing me out and everybody's making all this progress. And it's like, you are making progress. You're just making progress at your own speed. And that's what matters. Okay, so I think I've rambled enough for this video. If you guys have any more questions about creative fatigue in regards to what it is, how do you recognize it, how do you deal with it, I'm here. Hit me up in the comments. I'm happy to talk about this. I have a lot of experience with it, and I'm happy to pass on my wisdom, question mark? I don't think I have any wisdom, but anyway. If you guys like my video, make sure to like and subscribe, and thank you for not being normal with me. I will see you next time.